So the government is projecting to spend 830 and a bit billion to finance the affairs of the country for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. With us now to tell us if this is sufficient or not is Professor of International Business, Dr. Denzel Williams. Morning, Professor. Welcome to Smile Jamaica.
Morning.
Good morning, Neville. Good morning, David.
How are you?
Good morning to your listeners.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Give me an overview before you get specific, because I want you to get specific, but having heard the budget, just give me an overview, good, bad, good, indifferent, how you feel?
Yeah. Thank you very much. So as I said it before on previous occasions, I think the budget is one that is credible in the context of normal times. If you had no economic crisis and your economy was on a growth path, etc., this is a budget that would carry you there. But we're not in normal times, we're in extraordinary times. So my own analysis is that the budget is not bold enough to do exactly what we need to do to recover in the fastest possible time.
Yeah, not bold enough, did you say?
Yes.
All right, so give me pros and cons here now. Tell me what's good about it, and then I guess Dela will come in. You can tell us other stuff. Tell me what you think is good about it.
Well, the good thing is that it provides you with a framework within which you can start the recovery. So, for example, the Serve Jamaica project is an important project that I think is able to anchor the kind of economic growth that is needed. But as I said, it is not bold enough in the sense that we're now in a crisis situation, and for the government to be projecting a balanced budget. I understand the spectacle behind that, but the truth is what you need is really fast recovery so that you can get back more people in jobs and they get back the economy to where it was so that you can get back on a growth path. And what you need is a greater stimulus. And so in that SERV project, what you should be looking at is how you're going to put more money into the hands of people so that they can now go out and stimulate aggregate demand. What we're seeing in the project is that a lot of the money of the 60 billion will be going towards infrastructure, vaccination, etc. And while those things are good, you still need to find some counter-cyclical policy, which is something that is different from where you are now, and stimulate the economy. And so what I'm calling for is for us not to run a balanced budget for this year, but to at least run a small deficit and stimulate the economy with that kind of deficit spending so that you can grow the economy much faster and move back to recovery in a faster time.
I'm hearing you, Doc, and I'm thinking in the simplest layman's terms, because that's one of the things I find once the budget is done that people don't understand the micro implications of it. There are no taxes, so where would that kind of money be generated? I guess to support the programs that you're referring to.
Well,
no
I mean,
new
as
taxes,
you know,
I should say.
In every economy, Delia, there's a certain level of activity that is just going to take place. So, for example, let us be very clear, because there is this impression that we're not going to be borrowing any money to finance this budget, and that's not correct, actually. Because if you notice, the government is going to be spending $830 billion that is budgeted to spend. Of that amount, we're expecting to generate 672 billion in terms of taxes and grants and all those kinds of things. So therefore, there's still roughly about another 128 billion that we have to go to the markets to borrow. Now, this is where the rubber hits the road. Of all of that money that will be spent, we will be spending roughly 301 billion on what they call programs. These programs include the capital projects like the roads and the bridges and all the kinds of different irrigation program and path program and stuff. What we are saying is that the government intends to run what they call a primary surplus, which is expenses minus revenue. So it's like savings of $131 billion. What we're saying, rather than saving so much today, you can reduce that saving to say roughly about $80 billion and take out another 30 to 40 billion to put into the economy so you can spin up and stimulate the
time. Do you think that we have spread it out enough in terms of industry? We keep saying that the culture and creative industries is an important area in which we have to start looking at developing businesses, because based on COVID-19, we should have learned that agriculture and tourism, very important, but can't be the only things that we anchor our money on. Do you think that we've spread it out enough in terms of the diverse industries that we'll now be looking at?
Excellent question, because that's the point. That's where we're getting at. So, as you know, as Minister had said in his own presentation, it's a matter of prioritizing at this point in time. So where I come from, I agree that it's a matter of prioritizing. But what we're now saying, things like what you have just identified, you have to prioritize in terms of some new and developing industries, for example. So the creative sector is one of them, and I am calling for a clear policy to stimulate that sector using government revenue. And so I have called for example, a $1 billion fund to put into about 10,000 entrepreneurs' hands, so that these young people can now use information and communication technology, artificial intelligence, and those kinds of things, and the creativity of their brains in order to develop businesses and provide employment for one, two, or so other persons. And I think that's the kind of thing, because we have heard about the digitalization of the economy, but as you would appreciate, digitalization and creative economy work hand in hand. And so you're absolutely correct. That is a sector that should be prioritized, that we should be looking at and pumping more money in there.
I like your words, sir, and I actually understand what you're saying, surprisingly. But I'm not even certain I know what the word normal means anymore with what's going on in the world. But having said that, with all that you've just said, when do you see we getting back to some kind of normal?
Well, if you're saying normalcy in terms of the medical aspect of things, Neville, I would leave the medical people to speak to that. But one of the good things that we see is now that we have started a vaccination program. And all being well, if we roll out this program, the Serve Jamaica project has $6 billion for acquisition of vaccine. We have seen where we have said if we do get up to 2 billion doses of vaccine, we should have about 70% of our population vaccinated by the end of this year. We have also seen from the CDC, where President Biden has said by about May of this year, the United States should vaccinate all of its citizens. Now, if those things go well, and we have seen the CDC says once you're vaccinated, you can come back to some level of normalcy in terms of people who are vaccinated can interact and so forth. Now, if that is so, then the truth is that in terms of movement of people again, we should be seeing that picking up roughly about, I would think, say, the third quarter of this year. But in terms of the economy, coming back to some level of normalcy to where we were in 2019. That is why I'm saying now, when we look at the numbers, if you continue on doing the same things that you have been doing for the last 30 years or so, you're not going to get back to that economic normalcy until about another decade. However, if you starting to do something different and something more radical and robust, then you can grow the economy much substantially more than what it used to grow at. And I'm saying if you grow it at, say, 5-7%, you should be able to get back to economic normalcy within a short period of time, within 3 to 4 years. But if you go to the traditional growth path, you're not getting back there until about another decade. Well, and that is what we're saying, the recovery. And this has to position us to get to a faster recovery, get back more people into jobs. And I'm saying one of the ways that we must do it is to make sure that people have more cash in their hands for a long period of time.
Yeah, that's what I meant when I said normal with the economy. You answered the question, but that's scary, Professor. Even if it's 3 years or 4 years, that's scary.
Yeah.
Worse if it's 10 years. Yeah. That's very scary, isn't it?
Right, because with so many people unemployed, you really don't want to have that scenario panning out for too long. And so, one of the interesting things, Neville Daly, to identify, if you notice the United States, I think it's yesterday, President Biden signed a $1.9 trillion relief bill. And that is really to stimulus to get cash into the hands of people. The OECD have actually now improved the outlook for economic growth in the United States from 3% to over 6%. Exactly because of what is happening with that stimulus package. I'm not saying we have that amount of money to push into the hands of people, etc. Right. But Giving 50,000 people $10,000 a month over 3 months is not going to create that kind of buzz in economic activities that you need. And I'm saying what you need is a longer period with more persons getting direct grant. And so part of the boldness I'm talking about, if you pull back some of the investment in some of the other areas and do direct grants to people so that they can go out, they can go to the restaurants, they can go to the supermarket, they can go to the shops, they can go to the hotels, etc. That will bring back some level of economic activities, and the spill-off will now be more significant, that they can actually drive the kind of growth that we need in the economy. But we have to do something different.
Doc, I just want to push a quick one in here, because one of the things I'm also concerned about is human capital. We can build the businesses, but if we don't have the persons with the expertise, if we don't try to recoup the learning loss that has happened with the children, if we don't allow the kind of digital access across the board so that everyone is able to move with the economy when it's moving, then we're going to have even greater disparity, with the wealthy, those who have and those who have not. What types of programs are you hoping that the government will invest in terms of training and development for people?
Well, the first thing that you need to do is that you need to give people more equitable access to technology. That's the first thing. So people need to have the information and communication technology. They need to have the instrument, the laptop, the iPad, what have you. And then, importantly, they now need to also have access to broadband or whatever technology that they're going to be using to use those things in the digital space. Once you have those, then you can now put in the necessary training, because it doesn't make sense you're saying you go online for schooling, for example, but only 10% of your students actually have broadband that can keep up and they can stay on it for a full day to get access to teaching and learning exercise, and 90% of your kids are outside of that realm. It doesn't make sense that you go there and then 90% of the kids don't have any instrument to log on to get these things going. So if you're going to do these things, there are two important areas that you have to actually invest in. Firstly, you have to invest into the broadband. And so again, the SURF program talked about 1.8 billion, I think, for broadband connection. That is woefully inadequate. We're looking at, I saw last estimate to say to get full broadband Wi-Fi access right across the country, we're looking at roughly about $6 billion. And those are the kinds of things, because it is true, that yes, we invested in highways and we invested in things like, Montego Bay bypass and stuff. It's true that those things are important for the future. But what we're saying right now, what you want to do is to stimulate some quick recovery. And so rather than say spending 18 or 19 billion dollars on the highway for St. Thomas and back to Portland, you may want to look at how you take out some of that. So to do the immediate things right now, like giving the broadband, etc., and then you can now go back to the highway later on when you get some stimulation in the economy. Those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about, basically.
All right.
Thanks, Professor. Good to see you, sir. Stay safe, please.
Great. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Denzel Williams, Professor of International Business. Coming up, we speak with a 16-year-old author making waves. Please stay with us.
I don't know why she said, well, you know, I'm gone.